Oh shit. Let me check the microphone. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Hopefully we get some notifications out there. Hopefully we get some notifications. Okay, cool. Audio sounds great. Thank you so much for joining the live stream. Obviously, today we're going to be discussing what happened with Iran attacking commercial ships earlier today. That's the breaking news. We also have the inflation report. CPI came out as well. Came in line, actually. And I want to make sure I'm close enough to this microphone. I was having an issue with that on the other stream, I think. So I'm going to try to stay a little bit closer to the microphone. Let me move my shit over here. So yeah, we've got the inflation rate. We're going to be talking to the AI a little bit. We're going to talk to Gemini. I got a cute little voice for it, and it's very informative. But obviously, when using AI, you have to, just like reading or consuming any other media, realize that there could be agendas or leniencies towards certain politics or economic theories. Let's just look at some of the charts right now. Oil, right? Obviously, we're following oil because of the war. Crude oil is at 88. Brent is at 92. So we're sort of stabilizing right here. Let me go ahead and look at the chart on crude. Yeah, some massive gains the past couple of weeks, going from like, what was it, 64. Brent had hit 120 a barrel at one point in time. So definitely a pullback. We're sort of consolidating here right below 90 for the WTI. Gasoline prices up big, 6% today, almost 7% today. We got gasoline futures at 2.7 per gallon. Average price of gas in this area, the Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach area, right now is about $3.50. I haven't paid that much for gas, but some gas stations are charging that much. So we've definitely seen, with the escalation of war in Iran, we're seeing the real world consequences in our daily lives. And that's why we follow this stuff. I'm interested in the crypto markets. I've talked about this a couple of times. Some of the things I'm following, Cardano and also XRP. Let me pull up the XRP chat. I got two ADA or charts. XRP, I got two ADA charts up here. XRP/US dollar. I always look at, if I'm looking at gasoline or commodities, I'm going to be looking at the futures charts. But when I'm looking at crypto, I'm always looking at the price, against the dollar. So XRP/USD or ADA/USD, just something to note there. So we're XRP, we're at $1.39. What really interests me about XRP is the fact that there's a lot of institutional backing for this particular cryptocurrency, for this particular software. So banks, I know that there was a Swiss bank, also PNC here in America. They do use XRP and they're buying XRP. XRP, the more I look into it, it looks like it's very easy and inexpensive to do transactions like big banking transactions with XRP. So ADA as well is interesting. It's more of like a hype play for me, like why I follow it and everything. But you've got that at 26 cents. I started buying it a few weeks ago at 28 cents. But I'm really looking to see if this, bottoms out even more, right? We've been talking about this. And make sure to give this stream a big fat like. Give it a thumbs up if you're enjoying the economic streams, the commentary, the political streams. We've got a lot we're going to talk about. We'll go live for probably about an hour here. Yesterday's live stream went really well. I want to thank everybody for participating in the chat and the comments. And so you can also check out my community posts. If you do miss the live stream or you don't get a notification, I always post them on my community tab. So get involved in the community tab, the community board there. So the inflation. Let's talk about the inflation report. That is the big news. As far as the economic data that came out today. So the inflation rate matches the forecast. U.S. annual inflation held at 2.4% in February, matching January, and holding at the lowest level since May 2025. But remember, this is the CPI. The PPI came in a little bit hotter a few weeks ago, and we still have the PCE coming out on Friday. So markets are kind of stabilizing. You see even oil stocks. Stocks I think were up. Stocks finished flat to lower. So they closed a little bit lower. But crude oil prices rise again. I mean they're stabilizing a little bit here. Treasury yields on the rise again. I don't talk enough about treasuries or its effect on the market. The treasury market is actually much bigger than the stock market. Which for a long time I actually maybe didn't realize that, but the inflation came in line, but you still have the PCE data. And also the another thing to consider is the effects of these high oil prices on at least the headline inflation reports may not come in for another month or so. Because there's a little bit of a lag here when it comes to collecting this economic data. Because this is for February, right? We weren't at war in February. I think the war started maybe at the end of February or early March. I forget now. But when it comes to the war, we're now almost 30 days in. We're going on 20, something like that. And no end in sight, but we do need to remain optimistic. We should be hopeful. We should be hopeful that the Trump administration does have some sort of agenda or some sort of objective here. The Strait of Hormuz getting bombed. The commercial ships today, we're going to look into that. Definitely some serious escalation on the part of Iran. I said this in my video yesterday. The main thing that's making me nervous about this is how long it's taking, and Iran's capability of kind of outlasting the U.S. in some sort of long-term conflict. Ultimately, I mean, this is what kind of there's this popular Chinese professor. He's kind of got some communist leanings, I believe. Definitely an anti-American narrative. But he essentially says America's at risk of being pushed out of that region, being pushed out of the Gulf states. Israel is under a lot of pressure, obviously, and the war definitely, at least they're honest about that. It's really about Israel. It's about protecting Israel, or it's about Israel maybe 25 years down the line kind of having more of an influence over Iran, having more of the U.S. and Israel having more of an economic, financial influence over the entire Middle East. This is basically, I'm not trying to be conspiratorial here, and I'm not trying to be too epic either, but this is basically the empire. They need this conquest, right? Trump really needs to, well, whether you agree with it or not. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying, from Trump, the America First agenda, this administration, Israel kind of calling a lot of the shots here, how much control with banking and oil flows and transactions. A lot of this is really economic. They'll say publicly, because it's easier to give this public narrative that, Iran's, just weeks away, months away from developing a nuclear weapon. It's easier to communicate that to the public than to actually tell them that, Iran's resisting Roman rule, right? Iran's resisting, paying the tributes. They're resisting being a vassal state of the United States and Israel. And they're resisting economically, politically, religiously. They're resisting culturally. So, a big thing here. Like, can Trump do this? I really hope he can. Let me go ahead and check out the chat here. I just looked at BTC to gauge the large time frame and then bet on the cryptos like XRP. That's a great strategy, Sean, and following Bitcoin specifically. When Bitcoin's down, obviously on a percentage basis, a lot of these other cryptos, especially the shit coins, the altcoins, they're going to be down even bigger. The bigger Bitcoin gets, the less volatile it'll be, but it's still down almost 50%. Let me go to the BTC chart here real quick on, I'm on trading economics. I really enjoy using trading economics, but when you look at the Bitcoin chart, I mean, going from almost $125,000 per Bitcoin down to 70,000. I mean, that's close to a 60% drop, 55% drop. And I'm hoping it bottoms out even more. But yes, following Bitcoin, and then you see a lot of these other assets are down way bigger than that. Like if I look up Solana here, let's see, Solana is at 87 right now, but it was at 250. So that's incredible. I mean, on a percentage basis, that's way over 50%. So yes, these smaller altcoins, the further Bitcoin, the more volatility to the downside Bitcoin has, these altcoins are going to be even more volatile. And I mean, with a coin like ADA, right? Let's actually let's ask the Google gods about ADA. All right. Can you tell me a little bit more about Cardano, ADA, its utility, and why it would be interesting, especially that it's down so much in this crypto bear market? Could you kind of summarize this for my live stream, please?
All right, so Cardano, or ADA, pitches itself as a more sustainable and scalable alternative to other blockchains, kind of like Ethereum, but developed with a focus on academic research and peer review. Its native token, ADA, is used for transaction fees, for staking to help secure the network, and for governance, letting holders vote on future changes. Now, in a bear market like this, some investors might look at Cardano precisely because it's down so much, seeing it as a potential opportunity to get in at lower prices, betting on its long-term development and ecosystem growth. Of course, it's also risky, since everything in crypto is volatile. Is there anything else specific about it you want to cover for your live stream?
So comparing it to XRP, which I know a lot of financial institutions, banking institutions have bought into or are interested in using for transactions, comparing Cardano to XRP is also a very interesting opportunity right now. It's down very big in this crypto bear market. What would you say about ADA versus XRP, and why is XRP maybe important to look at or even invest in?
You're right that they're very different. Cardano is more about decentralized apps and a broad ecosystem, while XRP's focus is really specific, speeding up and lowering the cost of international payments, which is why financial institutions get so interested. They see it as a bridge currency. As for why invest, both are sitting low right now, but the reasoning depends on which goal makes more sense. Cardano, if you believe in its building for developers, and XRP if you think institutional adoption will take off. What kind of points do you want to stress on your live stream?
Well, I think that was a really good point that you made, making a bet on XRP that there is going to be some sort of, massive institutional adaptation using XRP for transactions. That's all for now. Thank you. So you could do this all day, right, with the AI. And obviously you got to fact check, you got to look at your own charts, you got to find your own setups, you've got to, monitor things and talk to the AI in a way that's, expresses your interest in how you're sort of making connections here. But I could do that all day, and I think that when you look at the crypto markets right now, and that's what's really in a bear market. Stocks are still kind of elevated, right? But there is a lot of money coming out of the stock market, coming out of the S&P 500. Today, let's see. Let me get them. It was down a little bit, right? That's what they said on Trading Economics. If I go to the indexes here, let's see. So let me try stocks index. Where's the S&P here? The U.S., it says here, is down 0.19%. My point is stocks are elevated still. A lot of money is coming out of the stock market because of the disruptions in the Strait. What we need to look up is some news about the Strait of Hormuz and these escalating strikes that Iran has made on commercial ships. Let me ask the AI about this real quick. So earlier this morning, I saw that Iran had attacked commercial ships, 3 of them actually. One of them, I think, was sinking when this news report came out. But can you talk a little bit about that? What's going on, the after effects, the Trump administration's reaction, and also how does this affect oil prices? How does this affect how long the disruptions are going to be? Can you kind of summarize that for my live stream?
You're right, things are escalating quickly. Iran's been targeting commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz as a way to disrupt maritime traffic, and reports say one cargo ship was actually struck and set on fire. In response, the Trump administration has vowed to end the conflict soon, and US and Israeli forces have kept up strikes on Iranian targets. This is definitely pushing oil prices higher because people are worried about disruptions to supply through that critical shipping lane. How long the disruptions last will really depend on how things unfold and if there's any further escalation. Is there anything specific you'd like to focus on for your audience?
What has Trump said specifically about the strikes on the commercial ships?
Trump's been pretty forceful. He warned Iran of military consequences at a level never seen before if they didn't remove any mines they'd laid, and vowed to deal with any vessels trying to...
Yeah, so that's another thing. They're leaving mines in the water. Now the U.S. Navy and intelligence, they need to figure out where the mines are, and they need to, either detonate them safely or the Strait of Hormuz situation appears to be getting worse. That's my point. That situation doesn't look good. Iran attacking commercial ships. This is definitely total war, right? Iran is declaring total war at this point. And I'm just worried because Trump says it's not going to take that long, and we're now like 20 days into this. We're going to be going on a month into this operation. And Iran is such an ancient civilization, and the geography is not good for a ground invasion. Whatever Trump's plan is, he really needs to get it done. And also, I got to make this point too. Everything Trump is doing is going to be undermined if he doesn't have some sort of legacy presidential candidate to carry these policies forward into the next 4 years after his administration, into the, hopefully 8 years after that, or I should say, hopefully for the America First Trump agenda. Not saying I agree with it, not saying it's good or bad, just kind of looking practically at all of this. But we are suffering higher gas prices. Oil is up significantly, still elevated from previous levels around 60 to 65 just a few weeks ago. Absolutely historic times we're living in. I want to address something that, going back to Bitcoin, that Sean Stedman just said in the chat. Bitcoin is so large. All right, let me read this comment real quick, and then I'm going to respond to it. And thank you so much for watching the stream. Please do give it a big thumbs up and comment down below. Even if you missed the stream, leave a comment down below. Let me know if I'm missing anything. Let me know if there's a connection here that I'm not making. But Sean Stedman said, I just think Bitcoin doesn't have a lot of potential to move like it once did. So I rather look at smaller alts to have more potential. And this is the other thing too. The alts, you're some of them, you're buying them on cents on the dollar, right? So it's much easier to accumulate, obviously, when you can spend $5 and have like several hundred coins or several thousand coins if you really want to go the shit coin route. I'm not all into complete shit coins. Like even Trump's coin is a shit coin. People made a lot of money on that though. The past 6 months or so when that was blowing up. But Angel Pizza, welcome to the chat. I like this, Charles, the newsman, Charles. Well, we're just kind of talking about the markets here. I've got some income. I've got some money. I need to figure out what I'm going to do with it. You're in a similar situation. You need to figure out what you want to do with it. I want to get back to trading. Like at the end of the day, the big goal for me is to really get back into trading and to to really be actively trading and investing. But looking at the macro, looking at the geopolitics, thinking a year down the line, that is also part of trading. Unfortunately, I can't just be addicted to the 5-minute scalps, right? There has to be a little bit more going on in the background. And I'm looking for all of these markets to sort of bottom out after the midterm elections. I watched this incredible video by the trading fraternity, and he put me on to this video, really put me on to the fact that over the past, it's about 115 years, the S&P 500 specifically has been up on average 15% after the midterm elections, which are coming up in November. So thinking about that, and you should go and watch that video. It's definitely important, definitely an important concept to understand. More of a macro concept, more of a little bit longer term time frame here. But it makes sense to sort of wait on the sidelines, knowing that before the midterm elections, we're likely to see the bottoms. The markets are going to make bottoms. I mean, if you look at the past 150 years at the S&P 500, he went through it in his entire video. The markets are, and this is well-known knowledge as well. I mean, I'm not the only one talking about this, but the markets are always up 6 months after the day after the midterm elections. 6 months later, markets are up. S&P 500 up 15% on average, which means there's been some years where the S&P 500 was up more like 30%. There's been other years where the S&P 500 was up maybe 2 or 3%. But on average, it's 15%. That's a pretty good fucking bet. Like, it's like almost a guarantee if you look at the past 150 or 115 years, that's pretty well established. I mean, that's more well established even than like the NASDAQ, you know what I mean? Or any of these crypto shit coins that we're thinking about gambling on. Another app that I found too, guys, I got to let you know about this, the Kalshi app. This is not sponsored. I don't have a Kalshi link, though I should put my link in the description. Maybe I will. But Kalshi, man, looks so interesting. I downloaded this app the other day. Let me look at my chat, and then we're going to talk about Kalshi because I really want to share this with you guys. It's important. XLM is like the little brother to XRP, which is less centralized if you look at it. XLM. Okay, I'm going to have to look at that. XLM. Let's see. Let me open up another crypto.com tab. XLM. I'm I guess familiar with the ticker symbol, but definitely have never owned any of this or tried to trade it. Why is it asking me to log in again? It's asking me to log in again. All right, let me try it on this. XLM. Yeah, Sean Stedman, you are definitely all up in the crypto space. I think you know a little bit more about it than I do. All right, let me try this. Markets. Let's see. Category. All right, so XLM. How do I search XLM? There's a search button right up here. XLM. Here we go. XLM USD. So Sean Stedman says XLM is like the little brother to XRP, which is less centralized if you look at that. Less centralized. So what does that mean? I mean, the banks are still interested in XLM. So this fucking shit coin is fucking, what, 16 cents? I love it. I mean, I really do love it. I will look into it. It looks even more degenerate than XRP or ADA. But I will definitely look at it. 16 cents per shit coin. Massive volume here at 8 point. Let's see. This recent spike is 8.48K. So I'll look into that, Sean. Yeah, for sure. XLM. I got the chart right here. I'm making a mental note to do some research on the utility of XRM. I appreciate the comment. Let's see. It's very tied to XRP. They are on the same network. I mean, they use Ethereum, right? Aren't they like based on Ethereum? Or maybe that was ADA. I could be wrong about that. I'll be honest with you guys. Following the crypto space, it's intimidating because there is a little bit of tech aspect to it, right? You have to it's sort of like finance, sort of like following central banking, for instance. You have to know a certain language to kind of understand the crypto space. And it is a little bit beyond maybe my previous conscious levels. I wish I had followed, the lead of some of the even crypto dreams. If you guys remember Vegan Dreams way back in the day. I mean, he was telling me in 2016 to buy frickin' Bitcoin, and I just wasn't interested. I guess I didn't have the financial consciousness, the financial awareness. But having financial and economic awareness and consciousness, especially, this is the blessing. Right. This is, I guess, the blessing of the stream, the blessing of being able to talk about this with you guys, and the blessing of having other people interested in this kind of thing is like we're in this position where we have income, right? And we have financial and economic ambition. And with income and this financial consciousness, this economic consciousness, that I think more and more people are definitely developing. I've been developing over the course of, and it's a spiritual consciousness as well, because economics, finances, it's a physical manifestation of a lot of what's going on in the spiritual realms, right? The quantum field, if you want to call it that, on a scientific level. Tying all of this together with financial consciousness and an income, you really can change your life. I mean, that's essentially, I guess, my pitch to you today, right? With an income, I don't care what you have to do, just get a fucking income. I don't care if it's fucking $300 a week. I don't give a fuck what you're making. Get an income, a sustainable living situation, and you can really change your life. It could happen. It could happen over the course of a month. It could happen over the course of a year. It might take 10 years, but no more doom and gloom. No more, stressing about the war, stressing about the current events, the short-term, temporary aspects of reality, aspects of life. You can really jump into a brand new timeline, but it does take a certain level of awareness. It takes a certain level of consciousness. And I do think financial, economic, political, geopolitical consciousness, it's definitely something you have to work on. It's definitely something you have to develop in your own psychology, in your own timeline. And that's why I like to have positive thoughts about the market. That's why I like to talk about it positively. I don't dwell on, I get this kind of criticism from people that I'm dwelling too much on the war. I'm talking too much about the war. The war is so low astral, and it is low astral. I mean, Trump hit a fucking school. How disappointing for people that voted for Trump. He bombed a fucking girls' school. And this is something that's definitely worthy of mention and critique, from the Trump administration towards the Trump administration. But I want to think positively about all of this. And whether you agree with Trump or not, whether you voted for him or not, he is the president, and he's making some really bold, what seems to be like really drastic and just insane moves, taking out Maduro, going after Iran, talking about taking over Cuba. And we know his words alone, they're definitely credible threats. A lot of this comes down to credible threats, especially when we're talking about the Federal Reserve and the federal government. A lot of what they're doing is just based on credible threats, based on their words. But we know from Trump's actions, we know from what's going on between Iran and the U.S. right now that Trump is serious when he talks about taking over Cuba, when he talks about taking over Greenland. All of these events could shock the markets, but look for the bottom. This is like the long-term vision that I have right now. Like if you really want to, it could be $1,000, it could be $10,000, it could be $100,000. Look for the bottoms coming the next few months. You can dabble, it's good to get into the markets, even with $100, $500, $1,000. You don't want to gamble, your money away, but even just being in the markets, having a few little things that you're holding, get you involved, get you thinking about it, and it manifests that reality for you. The money's right here in the charts. The money's right here in the economy. It's never been easier to access the wealth and abundance from the global economy. Never been easier. Pick your app, pick your website, pick your chart, pick your vision, pick your vision for your reality. A year from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. I know a lot of my visualization, my meditation techniques have definitely manifested greatness in my life, constantly jumping timelines. If you don't like the timeline you're in, you can change that right the fuck now. But it does take a certain level of consciousness. That could be spiritual consciousness, financial consciousness, economic consciousness, political consciousness. It could be consciousness just about how your own mind works, doing some shadow work, doing some, healing, anything from, past traumas, past, belief systems that have held you back. A lot of this is spiritual. It's esoteric as well. If you had told me 10 years ago that I would be so interested in following charts and markets, I would not have believed the person that had told me that about myself. There's a certain level of consciousness that it takes to develop and understand this aspect of your life. But I guess where I'm going with this is that it's all going to be good. Everything's well. There's a war going on. There's high, gasoline prices. There's tariffs. There's a trade situation with China. There's a possible, credit crisis going on, unfolding in the European Union and the UK that could affect the United States. Maybe the Federal Reserve holds interest rates higher for longer. I think they will. But no matter any of this stuff, developing your consciousness on whatever level that we've talked about is the key to sort of unlocking your potential. And also, you to unlock your consciousness, you also have to be in the present moment, and that can be very difficult at times. Can be extremely difficult. So let's see, oil spiking up a little, or gasoline, I should say, spiking up a little bit. It was down to $2.60. Now it's kind of trying to break this high at $2.81, right? So we're watching this happen live. No, it's its own network. XLM is its own network. I don't really understand it either, but I just kind of understand. Do you get the hype up to see? That's the thing, Sean, is a lot of this stuff, to be honest with you, with the crypto markets, with any of these markets, I'm going to be honest. A lot of it really is over my head, especially when I first start looking into it. I first start reading about it. I first start trying to understand it. So when I go to XLM, we'll actually ask the AI. We'll ask Gemini about XLM. Maybe we can get a little bit better sense of a gauge of what's going on here. But yes, a lot of these trades, you're going to be trading on hype. You're going to be trading on headlines. You're going to be trading or possibly even investing just on bits and pieces of information that you put together. I mean, if you're interested in crypto, if you're interested in stocks, if you're interested in trading commodities, futures, or trading option contracts, there's, it would take a lifetime, especially if you're starting at like where I started, about 30 years old, 7, 8 years ago. You're starting to understand all this stuff. It's going to take a lifetime to really understand all of it. As much as, like, I guess you would say the professionals or the people on Wall Street. This information, I guess there's a reason it's esoteric. It's very difficult to comprehend, and most people simply are not interested in it, and that's fine. That's fine. But watching these streams, me producing these streams, I would like to think that not only my consciousness is being enhanced, but also the consciousness of the viewers, of you, is also being elevated, being raised just by stimulating your mind, the noose, stimulating your connection with source to understand, these economic principles, which are a manifestation in physical reality of extremely spiritual mechanisms. Scientifically, you would say on a quantum level, right? There's mechanisms behind all of this. So let me ask Gemini about XLM. So Gemini, I'm live on YouTube. My viewer, Sean Stedman, you should note his name because he's definitely a regular in our streams, a big supporter. He mentioned a cryptocurrency called XLM, which he says is sort of tied or related to XRP, which we were talking about earlier because of the importance being the financial institutions backing and sort of buying into this. So can you just tell me a little bit more about XLM? I've never heard of it. I don't know how it works. I don't understand the utility and why anybody would even think about investing in it. Can you explain?
You're right, there's a connection. XLM is the cryptocurrency for the Stellar network, which was founded by one of the co-founders of Ripple, the company behind XRP. While XRP aims to facilitate fast, low-cost international payments for banks, Stellar's main goal is to make it easier for individuals to send money globally, especially in places without easy access to banking. Think of it more like peer-to-peer, often with a...
Hold on. Wait a minute. Before you continue, sorry to cut you off, but you're saying XLM is Stellar? Stellar is XLM. Because I've heard of Stellar. That's why I'm asking.
No worries, good question. Yes, Stellar is the network, and XLM, which people often call lumens, is the native cryptocurrency for it. They're essentially the same system.
Okay, so I'm wrong. Sean Stedman, I've actually held lumens before. I don't think I made any money on it. Honestly, to be honest with you guys, I was in a bad place in my life, and I think I actually sold it, to buy some bullshit. But I said earlier in the stream that I've never held XLM, which is Stellar or Lunas. I actually have held that before, so I just want to make that correction. So I am a little familiar with the name. That's why the name sounded familiar, XLM. I guess I should have known that was Stellar. But anyways, okay, so can you continue with XLM, its utility, talk about Stellar and, everything you were about to say?
So Stellar's designed to make it easy for people to send money across borders, especially in developing countries where traditional banking isn't as accessible. The XLM token, or Lumen, is used for
which I love. I love that they're trying to make transactions, banking more accessible in countries where it's not. I'm thinking Iran. I'm thinking Venezuela. I'm thinking some of these third world states. I think the dollar too, this is just a thought. We'll continue with the AI in a second, but I think the dollar is eventually going to be tokenized. It's going to be a digital dollar. They're going to be able to track every single official digital dollar and where it goes. But I think some of these cryptocurrencies, they're going to, at least the technology, maybe not the names, but the technology is going to incorporate with currency and the official currency systems that we have. I could talk on and on and on about where I think the dollar is. Do I think the dollar is strong? There's a lot of debate there. Maybe I'll do an entire stream talking about the dollar because I have been following the dollar, following the dollar's price, following the history of the dollar, following people's projections, different forward outlooks, forecasts for the dollar from a variety of sources, mainstream media, alternative media, kooks on YouTube, silver bugs, cash is king guys. I'm very interested in the dollar, and I think the debate about the dollar is very interesting. Is it legitimate? Is it going to fail? Some people don't believe the exact opposite. But let's continue with the XLM. All right, sorry I cut you off again. So XLM, banks using it to perhaps transact even easier than using XRP. Just continue with XLM. Why is it important?
No problem. So while XRP mainly aims at banks, XLM focuses on making payments easier for individuals and for smaller businesses, especially in developing parts of the world. Lumens are used for tiny transaction fees, and they help bridge different currencies when you send money across borders, making sure it arrives in the local currency for the recipient. Does that clarify things a bit more for your stream?
It does. Do you believe maybe in war-torn countries or countries with a lot of political instability and countries that are kind of trying to still fit in with the global economic system, maybe countries like Venezuela and Iran, could they benefit from XLM, or at least the technology behind that kind of utility, where they're trying to, XLM is trying to include people that are kind of outside of the mainstream global economic banking structure? Give the stream a big fat like, guys. Continue, I'm sorry.
No problem at all. In places with a lot of instability or strict mainstream banking restrictions, people might turn to technology like Stellar to send and receive money or hold value without relying on potentially unreliable or sanctioned systems. It can provide a way for individuals to stay connected to the global economy despite local challenges. Does that sound like what you were thinking of?
It does, but can you answer my question specifically? Like, could people in Iran, if there was some sort of, let's say, long drawn-out conflict, or maybe people in the Ukraine, people in Africa that maybe don't have access to the global banking system, could coins like XRP, XLM, or others be a solution for them to make transactions? Could the technology at least be a solution for some of these countries that are economically maybe outside of our system? Could it help them make transactions and to actually be included in the global banking system?
Yes, they absolutely could. In places facing long-term conflict.
So another risk I sort of see here, I'm sort of talking off the top of the dome here, but Trump wants to dominate economics and finances globally. And for an America First agenda, that does seem to be in line. Not saying I agree with it, not saying the tactics being used right now are good. Without getting into the politics or the ethics of it, could cryptocurrency possibly undermine American dominance in economics simply because of the decentralized nature of cryptocurrencies? And could this also be affecting the Fed and their ambitions to create some sort of digital dollar, some sort of digital stable coin, where they can track every single dollar and every single transaction? Does the Fed feel pressure by the cryptocurrency markets exploding the past 20, 25, 30 years, however long Bitcoin's been around? I mean, imagine buying Bitcoin cents on people have been completely transformed over the course of 10, 15, 20 years. Nobody's turned into millionaires, multimillionaires Multimillionaires turned into billionaires just simply because of the crypto markets. That's one risk I sort of see for U.S. dominance when it comes to economics and finances and banking. Why do you need a centralized system if a lot of this is just based on software and AI? And I know there's people in the crypto space that kind of are maybe calling for or trying to maybe usher in or rein in or root in a sort of decentralized economic, financial, banking system. Credit is decentralized, mortgages are decentralized, trade is decentralized. What does the world look like? I know I'm thinking real kind of abstract here, and I'm thinking some sort of weird scenario years into the future, but I hope you guys are with me here. Let me go ahead and engage with the chat a little bit more. Sean Sedman, thank you so much for watching. Sunset City, I love you. I love you, baby. Thank you so much for chiming in the chat. Thank you for supporting, guys. Make sure to give these streams a big fat like. Is the microphone level good? I feel like being about this close to the mic with the levels where it's at. I really feel like this is pretty good. You guys can turn the audio a little bit louder. Maybe you're listening to headphones. Maybe you're listening to it on your TV. I've got it in landscape mode because some of my viewers do watch this on TV, on their Rokus or whatever. So I know I watch my own streams and I watch other streams on Roku. I watch a lot of content on Roku using the TV. So, that's why I have it in this horizontal view. I might do a few portrait streams here and there. I kind of feel like that does help get in the shorts feed. It probably helps the channel get exposed a little bit more. But if you guys do want to help me out, please do just smash that like button. Even if you're watching this after the fact, smash the like button. If you're watching this after the fact, leave a comment down below, because I could be missing something here. That I definitely could be. There could be a connection I'm not making. I want to talk about Venezuela before I end the stream. We're about 42 minutes into the stream. I don't want to go much longer than an hour. But the whole Venezuela situation, which isn't getting a lot of mainstream media hype, I do want to go over that. So let's look at these comments real quick. Iran has some of the worst inflation for the last couple of years. I just wonder if the larger countries are going to use failing economies as a means to take over. Very insightful, a little bit vague, Sean, but very insightful. It sounds, the way the question you're articulating is very interesting. I think states like Venezuela, Iran, Cuba, even North Korea, though Trump has not come out and said that's a failed state. I mean, we know North Korea is pretty fucked up. There are some vlogs from North Korea. There's a lot of vlogs from Iran. There's a lot of vlogs from Venezuela. If you want to know more about what's actually going on the ground in Iran, the best thing you can do is actually go on YouTube and look up vlogs from Iran from the past month. You will get a really good sense of actually what's going on in Iran. It's amazing the world we live in. But when it comes to the inflation in Iran, yeah, obviously it's had the worst inflation for the last couple of years. They're resisting Roman rule. And when I say that, that's sort of it's just sort of our little code word. It's a little, when I say they're resisting Roman rule, you guys know what I'm talking about. They're the American Anglo-Israeli empire. That is essentially those are the factions, right? Whatever's left of the British Empire, the British monarchy, the British economy, America, and Israel, right? The European Union is important, but they're still a little bit outside of that. The European Union is more like the United States, I guess. They're more like the United States, but they're not as there's not as much precedent. There's not as much history there. The European Union there's a lot of risks to that entire economic union there that we could talk about, that I could go into. But Iran having the worst inflation for the last couple of years, well, so does Turkey. And Turkey, in a lot of ways, economically is resisting Western global powers. What will code word use, say as the Roman Empire, America, England, Israel. the way I sort of see it, and I know this is abstract, you know, some people are going to say I'm wrong, some people will say I'm crazy, some people will say this is a conspiracy theory. I'm not trying to project that kind of energy, but the way I see it is those three states, because the UK's banking and financial institutions are extremely powerful, as powerful as the Vatican. And I could get into the Vatican, I won't in this stream, but you have the Vatican in the mix, right? China's in the mix, Russia's in the mix. These are very important political, economic powers, cultural powers. And we're always at war, right? The West wants to dominate Russia. The West wants to dominate China. The West needs to dominate the Middle East, or we're going to be driven out. The Persians will drive the Roman Empire out of the Middle East, if you're following what I'm saying, if Trump doesn't get this right. So we should not be bashing Trump. We should be critical, obviously. We shouldn't just blindly follow anybody. But wishing bad on Trump's agenda in Iran is not helpful. It's not productive. And it's not on a quantum level. It's not going to make your reality any better. Because the longer this goes on, you want Trump to be successful. You want the Iranians to essentially, I hate to say it, but submit to Trump's American agenda, to submit to Roman rule. The quicker that fucking happens on an economic, financial basis, especially with the oil transactions, the quicker that happens, the better off the global economic system is going to be, if you envision it with America and Israel and England and the Vatican and the West dominating, okay? If you don't, and you're on the side of communist China or Russia, or you're on the side of the Persians, I get it. You're going to have a completely separate opinion. If you're on the side of Palestinians, I totally understand. You're going to have a completely different opinion, and that's fine. That's fine. I'm not saying I agree with the tactics. I'm not saying that I agree with the agenda, but practically speaking, from an American point of view, you know, it would not be good if America was chased out of the Middle East region. And inflation, again, I'll go back to this comment. Sean says, Iran has some of the worst inflation for the last couple of years. I just wonder if the larger countries are going to use failing economies as a means to take over. That's obviously what Trump is doing. I mean, Cuba is in a really bad spot. They used to get all of their oil, their energy from Venezuela. Well, that's not happening anymore. Why? Because Trump took over Venezuela. They're literally trying to install leadership there. I'm not saying I agree with it or disagree with it, but that's what's going on. They're trying to install, you know, deep state, American state backed leadership there. And if that's not successful, it's going to be very bad for oil prices. It needs to be successful. Trump is already committed to Venezuela. And I think Venezuela is much easier. They're not as ancient as Iran. This is a little bit more esoteric here, but you got to understand, the more ancient the civilization, the harder it is to conquer. The more established the civilization is. I don't care if it's a small state like Iran. Iran seemed like a small state, you know, when you're on this side of the pond, an American just watching mainstream media, or it seems like it should be a simple operation, but it's not. Iran is different than any of these other vassal states in the the Gulf states of what we would call the Middle East. Venezuela, though, is not as ancient, probably much more easier to control. Trump said, when he was asked about this on a press conference a couple of nights ago, which I actually watched, Trump said that they had extracted 100 million barrels of oil out of Venezuela already, and it's being refined in Texas. I don't believe Trump, but I do believe in his vision. Okay, I think Trump is bullshitting us when he says that exact figure, but I do believe in Trump's vision. I think for American security, if you're an American citizen and you do support your administrations, no matter who they are, you support the long-term agendas of your administrations and the long-term agenda not only of America, but also England, Israel, the Vatican, the West in general, the Judeo-Christian world. If you support it, you have to support Trump's success. He may fail. Trump may fail, but we have to focus on his success. And I pray to God that Trump knows what he's doing. I pray to God that there was a strategy taking out Maduro and trying to control those oil revenues first before. What I'm thinking is Trump may have, and again, I'm just talking off the dome. I've had these thoughts before, but as I talk more and more about this, these thoughts come to the forefront of my mind. I think Trump foresaw potentially a very long-term conflict in Iran. As unfortunate as it is, as disappointing as it is for people that voted on him, as disappointing it is to know that he's promised we wouldn't get in any more long-term conflicts. I would like to think, I'm putting this out there in the quantum field, that Trump took out Maduro and knew he could control Venezuela's oil revenues fairly safely, without a lot of conflict. I would like to think that that was part of the strategy of then attacking Iran afterwards, because Israel has been pressuring us to go after Iran for 30 years. It was bound to fucking happen. What other president is going to attack Iran? Trump is, not only is he married in to that part of the world, he's married into the Israelis, he's politically connected to the Israelis and the Gulf states. He also has financial obligations, he has financial ties, he has financial assets. He's got Trump towers, Trump hotels, Trump golf courses in all of the Gulf states. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, not saying it's a good thing, not saying I agree with it, not saying I disagree with it, but the America First agenda, and if you are an American, why would you want us to be chased out of the Gulf states? Why would you be rooting for Iran to outlast us in some long-term conflict? Why would you be rooting for Trump's failures? Why would you be focusing on Trump's failures? Obviously, they bombed a school. Something went wrong there. Other innocent people have been killed. I mean, you're talking about when they do these strikes, they're killing also the wives and possibly the children of these people who are essentially innocent. I mean, to get into the ethics and the morality of war, to get into the politics of war, it's kind of a dead end street, because there's nothing really we can do about it other than raising our thought patterns and thinking about things positively. And I think the sooner this conflict is over, the sooner Trump and America and Israel conquer the Middle East and conquer Iran. And what that looks like, I mean, Trump's talking about total surrender. I don't know what total surrender looks like in the 21st century. But what I see is the Iranians realizing that, there's too much risk to keep resisting Roman rule. I'm going to go back to that little code word here. There's just too much resistance there's too much risk to resisting the Roman rule, to resisting the post-Romano American, Anglo, Israeli, Vatican Empire, the Western powers. There's just too much risk. They're not big enough. They're economically not strong enough. Their people have suffered long enough. But when you go and look at these vlogs from Iran, I mean, I would go there just looking at the vlogs. I mean, a lot of these people are either from Russia or they're from other parts of the world. They're not necessarily Americans that are producing these vlogs in Iran. But the Iranian people do not seem aggressive. They do not seem militant. They have a militant government. I don't know if there's anything wrong with that. We have a militant government. You know what I mean? Like, because of our militant government, we are getting some things done. When you think about Trump and what he's doing, try to not focus on the negative. Try to not focus on just the current events. Realize that and hope that Trump has this vision that goes beyond his administration. Because I don't think Trump is going to get a third term. That's been floated around in mainstream media. That's been a fear of, left-wing radical Democrats. That's been a hope and maybe a proposition of some far-right radicals. But I don't know. Trump getting a third term seems highly unlikely. In fact, when I go to talk about Kalshi, the app I was talking about where you can bet on current events and news and stuff, I want to see if anybody's betting on Trump's third term. I would actually bet against Trump's third term. I might put fucking couple $1,000s against Trump's third term. And I'll tell you how Kalshi works. We're going to talk about Kalshi in just a moment. But yeah, I would really like to think this is what my frequency is putting out into the quantum field that I know will affect, even as insignificant as I may think I am. I'm not insignificant, neither are you. Trump has a long-term vision past his administration. He has a long-term vision. I don't know if it's going to be J.D. Vance. It could be Marco Rubio. We don't know who it's going to be, but somebody is going to run to get elected and continue his America First policies and agendas. That's the only way this stuff is going to work down the line. And I think Trump does have that vision past his administration. I mean, he has to, man. He's a fucking billionaire. He's smarter than anybody else in this room right now. That's why, like, all this criticism where people say that, Trump and the administration are a bunch of clowns, or they'll say the Federal Reserve, they don't know what they're doing. I don't know, man. They're better men than you and I. You know what I'm saying? And in a lot of ways. And we have to be hopeful that Trump does have some sort of long-term policy that he wants to implement here. And obviously getting kicked out of the Gulf states, Trump doesn't want that because he has so much financial and economic ties, and he's married his daughter into all of this kind of thing. Israel is important. You can agree with it, you can not agree with it, but for an America First agenda, Israel is a given. There's no way America dominates the Middle East without the state of Israel. People don't agree with it. People criticize it. The mainstream media slanders anyone who does criticize it as being anti-Semitic or right-wing. There are legitimate criticisms there. I'm just saying practically what we're looking at. Why would you want America to fail? Why would you want the dollar to fail? Why would you want your local businesses to fail? Why would you want Trump's tariffs to fail? Why would you and maybe I'm being a hypocrite here because I just said I would bet against Trump's third term. Let's go to Kalshi. I want to show you guys Kalshi, or at least talk about it a little bit. I downloaded this app. I've been hearing about it everywhere. There's a social aspect. So it's a trading app. It's not a sports betting app, but you can trade sports. They got sports spreads on there. I'm not interested in sports. Don't give a fuck about football. I don't give a fuck about basketball. I don't care. I don't follow it. I'm not saying it's illegitimate. I'm not saying people can't make money in it. But Kalshi does kind of markets itself towards the sports betting people because you got FanDuel. There's another app as well. I can't remember the name. I don't use the sports betting apps, but some people love sports betting. So Kalshi, obviously, they've got a lot of sports on their app. But you don't have to just trade sports on the Kalshi app. This is not sponsored. In fact, there's only a handful of people here, 10, 15 people in this chat. I implore you, I encourage you to go download Kalshi and check it out with me because I'm going to be looking at it the next few days. What's interesting about Kalshi, and even if you don't want to bet on it, you can get a lot of ideas about what people are, what the narratives are out there, right? They have, so you can basically place trades. I don't want to call them bets because this is not run like a sports app casino. There's no house. You are literally trading against other traders. You're just signing contracts, just like buying an option contract, a future contract, an up and down. They have up and downs for the cryptos, like any of that. You're simply trading against other traders. There's no house. They have their own clearinghouse, and they're based in New York City, and they're regulated by the CFTC. Oh my God, I probably sounded like an idiot here, but I have not memorized this. CFTC, I believe the CFTC, Community Futures Trading Commission. Yes, the CFTC, I was right. They're monitored and regulated by the CFTC. So it's very legitimate, based in America. It's not some Chinese app like Webull or something like that. And even Crypto.com, I think Crypto.com, I haven't actually deposited a lot of money on Crypto.com. People in my personal life swear by it, but they do have the up and down contracts. They have the strike options for cryptos. And, that's what we're interested in as short-term traders, as people that are interested in speculating. As much as we're interested in the macro environment, as much as we're interested in the long-term focus here, but speculating is fun, And if you can speculate for $5, $10, and that's what you're passionate about, I would say go for it. But what I was going to say about Kalshi is when you go to look at their charts and stuff, and the different, I guess you would just call them contracts. They're not assets. They're contracts. They're just trading contracts. That's all it is. And you're not betting against the house. The house doesn't have a big pot. They're not trying to make their margins off of people losing. You're literally betting on other people's other traders. How long will the government shutdown last? That was a bet when that was going on. When will DHS be funded again? You've got 58% voting April 1st by 2026, and you have 18% voting before March 20th. And that's coming up. You have 18% of this pool, and I'm going to tell you how much money is in this pool. 18% of them are voting before March 20th that the Department of Homeland Security is going to be funded again. And when you look at the amount of money that's in this pool, let me just show you the guys this. This is incredible. Let's see. Where is it here? Let me go back here. I saw the pool right here. When will DHS be funded again? There's almost $3 million in volume in this particular fucking trade. I mean, do you guys see that? Look at this. I'm pointing to it right there. Oh shit, I fucked it up. Hold on. I'm about to spill my Four Loko. Look at this. There's 12 different markets. There's almost $3 million in this bet. Right? And when you go into it, will DHS be funded again? You got several bets. You've got before April 1st, before March 20th, and before May 1st. 96% are voting before May 1st. So Department of Homeland Security, still not quite sure how we're funding that yet. Pam, was it Pam? No, it was Kristi Noem. I'm sorry, they got fired from Department of Homeland Security. They had unfortunately, the incidents with ICE shooting American civilians. We don't know a lot about that. We've got mainstream leftist media propaganda about it, and we also have the Trump administration ignoring, not really giving us a lot of details about it. So between those two factors, we don't exactly know what happened with those two incidences, but people are betting on whether or not it's going to be funded before April, before March, before May. I mean, very freaking cool. And it's not just politics when you go to cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin price today at 6 p.m. EDT, you've got 92% voting for 70,500 or more, right? So imagine if you're on this side of the bet where they're voting, what is it, 23% is voting for 70,750. Imagine being on that side of the bet and actually winning, So Kalshi is a very interesting app. It's not just crypto and politics. It's also culture, right? You can, any interest you have, people are betting on this shit. I'm just so hyped about it because I just downloaded the app yesterday. I haven't deposited any money in it. I'm not saying this is like a viable trading option. But I do like to trade inflation data. I like to make bets on inflation, employment, CPI, PPI, PCE, Fed interest rates. I just personally enjoy trying to, make reasonable forecasts for that. So I would be interested in probably betting that information. But when it comes to pop culture, who will win Big Brother in 2026? There's over $47,000 in volume on this bet. People are voting on Big Brother. So I don't care what you're into. If the vegan drama was still a big thing in this day and age, I'm sure people would be betting on that, right? If I'm sure there's probably, if you look into this, there's probably all sorts of bets about anything that you're interested in here. Will Katy Perry and Justin Trudeau be? I love it, guys. I love it. Look at this. Will Katy Perry and Justin Trudeau be engaged by the end of the year? People. This is what people are interested in. This is what people are interested in speculating on. This is what people are interested in betting on. I respect it. And the reason this app is different, again, this is not sponsored. I will put my link in maybe a future stream in the description if you're interested in downloading Kalshi. If you are, maybe wait a couple of days, just think about what I'm saying. And when I got the link down there, that'd be a big help because we both get $25 when you deposit $25. But I have no links in the stream. I'm just simply sharing with you guys this new app that I found. And you can bet on growth. You can bet on Fed decisions. You can bet on oil and energy. You can bet on inflation. Right, CPI year over year in May. You've got $1 million, almost $2 million in volume with 16 different markets, and people are betting on either 2% or 2.1% for CPI year over year in May. People are literally betting on these forecasts. And let's see, they have inflation, employment, housing. I don't follow housing enough. It's just not too pertinent to my life in this very moment. But jobs and economy. Here's the thing about jobs, guys. Maybe I'll close with this because we've been going on about an hour. The job market's bleak. It's really bleak, guys. The employment data is coming out worse and worse every month. the Federal Reserve's in this situation where they're in this neutral range. Inflation's still coming in hot, but they're very restrictive, and employment is suffering because of the high interest rates. It's easier to hire people, and it's easier for corporations to conduct business when the lower the interest rates are. But interest rates are elevated still. They're probably going to keep them elevated for longer. The job market is suffering. I think inflation is a big deal. The projections are 3% for the PCE on Friday. I believe that's correct. They're projecting 3% year over year. If it comes in hotter than that, that's a really big deal. That means the Fed has no reason to lower interest rates, despite the fact that the employment market is suffering. But despite all of this negative news, despite all of this, what could seem like doom and gloom in this economy, in my city, the reality that I have manifested is there's plenty of work. And I am working, and I do have income, and I'm very fortunate. And a lot of it is not just from the quantum field. A lot of it is not just mercy, right? A lot of this is positive thinking. A lot of this is manifestation. A lot of this is jumping timelines, like learning how to navigate through a quantum field of endless possibilities. And I really want to end it there for you guys, because whether it comes to working, whether it comes to just intellectually stimulating yourself, whether it comes to investing or trading in the markets, it's mostly mindset. It's mostly your connection to unity consciousness, connected to source, connected to God, connected to the Holy Trinity. You may call it whatever you will. The quantum field, there's endless possibilities. We are living in the quantum field. You can change your reality right now. And I'm glad you guys found this stimulating. I'm glad you guys found this conversation interesting. Kalshi is the most interesting app that I've found. And I think a lot of it's run on AI too, so it might be kind of an AI-based app. But yeah, I want to leave you guys with that. We're going to be talking more about Kalshi and all the different bets that are on there. I may deposit some money into Kalshi just for fun, but I'm extremely serious about acquiring assets, especially when this thing bottoms. Hopefully, that's what I'm expecting, is lower prices and a bottoming out somewhere around midterm elections. Midterms are in November. The bottom could be October. The bottom could be December. But just know, 6 months on a historical basis, over about 115 years, markets are always higher 6 months after the midterm elections. And I'm wondering if the Bitcoin markets or the cryptocurrency markets follow the same sort of trajectory. That would actually be one last interesting question to ask the AI. Let's see if our good pal Gemini, our sexy Gemini voice here, can answer this question for us. So Gemini, I do have one last question. Said something went wrong. I'm going to try again. Something went wrong. Yes, we've been live about 1 hour and 7 minutes. I just got here, Jessica. Welcome, Jessica. You've always been. Jessica's in the chat. Jessica Fury. He had a good fat dig before this. That's kind of mean. It's unproductive. Even if I did shoot a big fat main line of heroin or whatever my fucking drug of choice was in the past, I do hope you enjoyed the stream. Obviously, I'm not using. Obviously, I'm really working towards developing my life and staying away from drugs and staying away from toxic patterns and staying away from toxic content. To come in here and say that to my stream, you can laugh about it and you can try to troll me all you want. It's not very productive. It doesn't upset me. Me and God know what is what's going on with my my life. And I do hold on, let me turn the. I understand a lot of people's what can I say? I guess my viewers, I understand the speculations. I understand the doubt. I understand the disappointment. I understand the, I've made myself an easy target. I understand that, there's people that are upset, or there's people that are, I think with time, my persona on YouTube, the way you guys know me will change. And I'm changing every single day. I just hope I can lift everybody's consciousness. The AI is not working right now, but we will hold that thought and ask the AI that perhaps tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining the stream, guys. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your evening. I hope you've been inspired, motivated, perhaps intellectually stimulated. I know I was. Sean Stedman, thank you for the comments. Jessica, we also had Bill Nye, a few others in here. Billy, the science bro. Thank you so much for joining the stream, guys. Make sure to give it a big fat like. If you're watching it now or watching it after the fact, leave a comment down below. Let me know if there's something I missed here. I'm really interested to see what you guys said. I learned a lot from this chat. And as always, until next time, CMC News, CMC Media. As always, until next time, may the stars be aligned in your favor.